The morning began like any other, but by noon, the world had stopped. In every city, on every street, people froze where they stood, heads tilted upward, fingers pointed at the sky. Shadows spread across the ground, swallowing the sunlight. Blue sky was gone, replaced by a wall of silver and black ships, thousands of them hanging in low orbit like a swarm of predators circling their prey. They were so massive that their outlines stretched beyond the horizon. The sight was beautiful and terrifying, like a storm made of metal and fire. The first sound was not thunder, but a low vibration that shook the bones. It rolled across the world like a heartbeat, deep and alien. Then came the voices not from the skies, but from every device, every screen, every radio. It didn't matter if you were in a desert hut or a New York skyscraper. The transmission found you. The voice was cold, calm, and certain. It was not speaking to humanity. It was speaking over them, like a teacher to a disobedient child. People of Earth, we are the Galactic Council. Your species has violated the Accords. Your wars spread beyond your planet. Your defiance has been noted. You will surrender all weapons and control of your world. Refusal will result in the elimination of your species. You have one cycle to comply. The words were followed by silence. No music, no static, just an emptiness that made the air feel heavier. People looked at one another, waiting for someone to scream, to panic, to run. But instead, laughter. It's not everywhere, not at first. Just in one room, far away from the public eye, inside the United Nations Security Chamber. A long table was surrounded by the most powerful leaders on Earth. They had gathered not because of the ships. They had known about those for weeks, but because of the decision they were about to make. The alien fleet's arrival was no surprise. Council had sent threats before, warnings wrapped in false diplomacy. But this was the final push. A man stood at the far end of the table, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark naval uniform, with silver trim. His name was Admiral Keller, commander of Earth's Unified Defense Network. He didn't look at the others when he spoke. His eyes were fixed on the massive screen where the alien fleet loomed above the planet. They think they're untouchable, Keller said. His voice was calm, but his hands were clasped tightly behind his back. They think because they have more ships, bigger guns, and an empire that spans half the galaxy, will kneel like everyone else. One of the presidents leaned forward, her voice low. They've destroyed entire civilizations for less than what we've done. You know that. Keller finally turned to face them. His eyes were sharp, the kind of sharp that came from seeing too many battlefields. He said, and I also know something they don't. The room fell silent. Keller walked to the table, placing a small silver disc in the center. He pressed it, and a hologram appeared, a swirling mass of light and energy, rotating slowly like a frozen storm. This, Keller said, is why we won't surrender. The leaders stared. Most of them had never seen it before. The hologram didn't look like a weapon. It looked alive. It was found decades ago, Keller continued, buried under 3 miles of Antarctic ice. Older than any human civilization. Not built by us, but left for us. A murmur passed through the room. The council doesn't know about it, Keller said, and if they attack, we'll use it. One of the generals spoke up. Do we even know what it does? Keller's expression didn't change, enough to know it changes everything. There was a long moment where no one spoke. The alien fleet still hovered silently on the screen, a reminder that the clock was ticking. Finally, the secretary, General, leaned back in his chair and gave a single nod. Then we answer them. Minutes later, the alien fleet received their reply. Admiral Keller appeared on every council ship's bridge, his image clear and steady. To the Galactic Council, he began, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of human defiance. Your message has been received. Your demand is denied. We will not surrender our weapons, our planet, or our freedom. You think you can erase us? Try. And then, without waiting for a response, the transmission cut. The alien commanders sat in silence for a moment, processing the words. No one in the galaxy had spoken to them like that in living memory. The council fleets had faced rebels before, uprisings, even planetary militias, but always the end was the same. The rebels were crushed, their worlds burned, their names forgotten. This was different. This was insulting. The Council's high strategist, a towering insectoid with crystalline eyes, gave the order. Advance. Begin cleansing protocol. Above Earth, the great fleet shifted formation. Weapons the size of skyscrapers began to hum with deadly power. On the ground, sirens wailed in every city. People ran for shelter. Anti-orbital defense systems came online. Far away, under the Antarctic ice, the sealed doors began to open. Inside the underground chamber, the object pulsed, faint at first, then brighter, as if it could feel the danger. Energy rippled across its surface, bending the air around it. Scientists in white suits shouted data back and forth, warning Keller that the thing was waking up faster than they predicted. How long until it's ready? Keller asked. The lead. Scientists looked pale. We don't know. It's not exactly under our control. Keller didn't flinch. Then we make sure we're ready when it is. Outside, the alien fleet descended, their ships moving with the slow certainty of predators about to strike. The world held its breath. Somewhere in the crowd of billions, a child looked up at the blackened sky and asked her mother, "Are they going to take us away?" The mother pulled her close and shook her head. "No," she whispered. "They don't know who they're dealing with." And far above, the first beam of alien fire lit up the sky. The first alien beam tore through the upper atmosphere like a spear of pure sunlight. It struck an abandoned mountain range, vaporizing stone and snow in an instant. The blast was not meant to kill, it was a warning. A message. The Galactic Council wanted Earth to understand that this was only the beginning, but Admiral Keller had no interest in messages. Deep beneath the Antarctic ice, far from the chaos of the cities, his boots echoed through a steel corridor that ran for miles beneath the frozen continent. Ahead of him, thick blast doors marked the entrance to humanity's most guarded secret. The air inside was bitterly cold. Even though giant heaters lined the walls, frost clung to the pipes and steel railings. Scientists in heavy thermal suits moved quickly between glowing consoles, their faces lit by the strange blue light coming from the chamber at the center of the facility. The thing was awake now. It floated above a circular platform spinning slowly, its surface covered in shifting patterns of light. Every now and then, a ripple of energy pulsed outward, making the air shimmer as if the room were underwater. Dr. Naomi Vance, head of the Antarctic research team, met Keller at the edge of the platform. Her eyes were wide, her breath visible. In the cold air, "It's exhilarating," she said without greeting him. "We didn't touch it, didn't do anything, but it's listening." "Listening to what?" Keller asked. "The alien fleet," she replied. "It can feel them." Keller stepped closer, the hairs on his arms standing up from the static in the air. "You're telling me it knows they're here?" Vance nodded slowly. "It's been dormant for millions of years, Admiral, but it didn't wake up for us. It's waking up for them." Above them, far beyond the thick ice and steel, the alien fleet shifted its position. Massive dropships were breaking formation, moving into low orbit. Through satellite feeds, Keller could see their strange, insect-like designs, huge armored bodies with dozens of legs folded against them, ready to deploy onto the planet's surface. "Status on our defenses?" Keller asked over his wrist com. A voice crackled back. "Orbital shields are holding. Surface batteries online. But, sir, their main cannons haven't fired yet. We think they're waiting for us to panic." Keller's eyes stayed locked on the floating object. "We're not giving them the satisfaction." Naomi's voice was softer now. "You don't understand, Admiral. This device, it's not human. It's not even from their species. Whatever made it, it's older, much older. And if we use it, we're not just fighting them. We might be waking up something even they fear." Keller didn't look away. "Then maybe that's exactly what we need." The object pulsed again. Brighter this time, a deep, resonant hum filled the room. Several scientists stumbled, clutching their ears. The lights in the facility flickered. On the upper levels, technicians shouted that the power grid was being drained, not destroyed. but absorbed. "It's feeding," Vance said, her voice almost drowned by the sound. "It's pulling energy from everything around it." Keller turned toward her. "How long before it's ready?" She hesitated. "Ready for what?" "To fight," he said simply. The floor shuddered as another alien blast struck somewhere above them. Alarms blared through the facility, red lights flashing. A young soldier ran down the corridor toward them, his helmet under one arm. "Admiral, they've landed in Sector 12. Ground troops, hundreds of them, are moving toward our perimeter." Keller didn't flinch. "Hold them off, as long as you can." The soldier nodded and ran back the way he came. Naomi stepped closer to Keller, her voice urgent. "You don't understand what you're playing with. This thing might protect us, or it might erase everything. We have no control over it." Keller's gaze was like steel. "If they take this planet, control won't matter. We'll be gone. Either way." The object's hum deepened, so low now that it was more felt than heard. The patterns of light across its surface shifted faster, almost like writing messages in a language no human could understand. Naomi's computers were trying to translate, but the data was useless. Whatever the message was, it wasn't for them. Above the ice, the battle had begun. Alien troops in black armor poured from their dropships, moving with an insect-like grace. Their weapons fired bolts of green plasma that melted steel and turned stone to glass. Human soldiers fought back with railguns and missile batteries, the air filling with the roar of engines and the screams of the dying. From the command center, Keller watched the live feeds. Every second, the alien forces pushed closer to the Antarctic facility. If they reached the object, they wouldn't just destroy it, they would take it. And that could be worse. A sudden spike in the readings made Naomi look up from her console. "It's reacting to the battle," she said. "It's angry." The hum rose in pitch, and the air temperature dropped sharply. Frost formed on every surface, racing across steel and glass like living veins. Then, with no warning, a blast of energy erupted from the object. It didn't explode outward like a bomb, it flowed, a ripple of invisible force that passed through the ice, the earth, the ocean, and into the sky. Satellite cameras caught the moment it reached orbit. The nearest alien warship shuddered violently, its engines flickering out. Seconds later, it fell from the sky like a dying star, crashing into the ocean with a column of steam and fire. Naomi's hands were shaking. "It's choosing targets," Keller's jaw tightened. "Then let's help it choose." Outside, the alien ground forces stopped mid-advance, as if they sensed something. For the first time since the invasion began, the Council soldiers hesitated. The air around them shimmered. Far above, the rest of the fleet began to move not forward, but backward. Slowly, as if trying not to provoke whatever they had just awoke, Naomi stared at the object, her voice barely a whisper. "They're afraid." Keller looked at her, then back at the glowing sphere. "Good," he said. "Let them be." But deep inside, he wondered what if this ancient machine wasn't protecting humanity out of kindness, but because it saw the aliens as rivals. And when they were gone, who would be left to stop it? The ocean was still boiling from the fallen alien warship when the retaliation came. It began without warning, no light, no sound, just the sudden appearance of dozens of massive energy signatures closing in on Earth from deep space. The Galactic's Council had not retreated in fear. They had simply been calling for reinforcements. Now, those reinforcements were arriving in the Antarctic Command Center. The lights flickered again as the ancient artifact hovered in its containment chamber. Admiral Keller stood at the main display, watching orbital scans update in real time. The incoming fleet was different from the one already in orbit. These ships were larger, their armor blacker than the void around them, their shapes jagged and sharp like weapons forged from the darkness itself. "They're not holding back this time," muttered Colonel Reeves, Keller's second in command. "These are war dreadnoughts, full-scale planetary strike units. One of them could level a continent." Keller didn't look away from the screen. "Then we make sure none of them get the chance." In the center of the facility, Dr. Naomi Vance was still staring at the artifact. It no longer spun. Lazily, it was rotating with slow, deliberate precision, almost as if it were aligning itself to something far away. Its surface glowed with brighter and stranger patterns, and every so often, a single flash of pure white light burst from it. Vanishing into the ceiling and out into the sky, Naomi's voice was tight with unease. It's sending signals. Long-range pulses. They're strong enough to pass through the Council's jamming fields, but I don't know who it's talking to. Keller finally turned. Can you stop it? She hesitated. I'm not sure I should. Every time it pulses. The alien ships hesitate for just a moment, like they're checking their sensors. If I shut it down, we lose whatever edge we have. The facility shook violently as another blast struck somewhere nearby. A technician shouted over the alarms. Sector 7 defense grid is offline. Alien infantry are breaching the outer perimeter. Reeves grabbed his rifle and headed for the exit. I'll take a team to hold them. Keller nodded once. Buy us time. Outside, the battle was brutal. Snow and ice turned red as human soldiers fired from behind steel barricades, their bullets and railgun rounds punching through alien armor when they hit the right spots. The aliens moved with unnerving coordination, their segmented limbs carrying them over rough terrain with inhuman speed. Each carried a plasma weapon that could melt a man in seconds. Above it all, the sky was no longer blue, was darkened by the shadow of the alien dreadnoughts descending into low orbit. Inside, Naomi's screens lit up with new readings. Admiral, they're charging their main weapons. All of them. They fire, they could punch through the crust. Keller's voice was calm but firm. Then tell your artifact to do something about it. Naomi's fingers danced across her console, trying to interface with the alien device, but it wasn't responding to her commands. It was responding to itself. The humming deepened again, making the metal walls of the facility vibrate. Then, without warning, a wave of force erupted from it, much larger than before. On orbital scans, the effect was immediate. 3 of the approaching dreadnoughts suddenly lost all power, their lights flickering out as they drifted helplessly. One of them began to spin, uncontrollably, tearing itself apart under its own rotation. The others broke formation, but the rest of the fleet pushed forward, ignoring the loss. Keller watched in grim satisfaction. It's learning. Naomi's voice was a whisper, or remembering. The alien retaliation came seconds later.
I won.
Of the dreadnoughts unleashed a weapon unlike anything Earth had seen. A beam of black energy so dark it seemed to drink the light around it cut through the sky, piercing the atmosphere without heat or sound. The moment it touched the surface, everything within a mile simply ceased to exist. Not vaporized, not burned, just gone, as if erased from reality. The beam missed the Antarctic facility by less than 20 miles. Naomi stared at the readings. That wasn't just a weapon. That was dimensional displacement. Whatever it hits, it's not here anymore. Keller didn't flinch. Then we make sure they never get another shot. The artifact pulsed again, but this time it was different. The glow on its surface sharpened into what looked like a mappa, 3-dimensional display of the solar system. Strange points of light appeared across it, many far beyond Earth's orbit. Naomi's heart skipped. Those aren't stars. Those are ships, not theirs. Something else. Keller stepped closer. Ours. She shook her head. No, but they're coming fast. The alien ground troops pressed harder against the facility, their numbers increasing as more dropships landed nearby. Explosions shook the walls, and soldiers inside took up defensive positions in case the enemy breached. Through the blizzard outside, the black silhouettes of the attackers moved like shadows given form, and then they stopped. Every alien soldier on the battlefield froze, their weapons lowering slightly. Their heads turned toward the sky as if they'd heard something no human could. Naomi's voice trembled. Admiral, the artifact's not talking to us. It's calling them. Keller's jaw tightened. And who exactly is them? Before she could answer, the sky itself seemed to crack. From the far side of the moon, something enormous emerged. It wasn't a ship in the way the Council's dreadnoughts were ships. It was more like a moving fortress, a construct of stone, metal, and light so massive It made the alien fleet look like insects swarming around a mountain. And it was coming, straight for Earth. The alien dreadnoughts shifted position, their weapons now turning away from the planet and toward this new arrival. For the first time, the Galactic Council fleet seemed uncertain. Naomi looked at Keller with wide eyes. Whatever made that artifact is here. Keller didn't blink. Then let's hope they like us more than they like them. The fortress ship was so vast it seemed to pull the stars around it. Its outer surface looked carved from meteors infused with alien metal, and strange energy rivers flowed across its hull like molten silver. It moved with a slowness that was not weakness, but certainty, like a predator approaching prey that could never escape. From orbit, sensors failed to get accurate readings. The Galactic Council dreadnoughts scanned it with every frequency they had. But each scan returned something different. Sometimes it appeared solid, sometimes hollow, sometimes as though it were not truly there at all. And yet every being in the system felt its presence. In the Antarctic Command Center, Admiral Keller stood over the main display, silent. The artifact on the pedestal pulsed in perfect rhythm with the fortress ship's movements, its glow so bright now that it painted the walls in silver light. Naomi Vance's hand shook as she read the incoming data. "It's millions of years old," she whispered. "Older than the Council. Older than any civilization we know." "Then it's seen more wars than we can imagine," Keller said. Quietly in orbit, the Council fleet began to fire. Massive beams of plasma, kinetic warheads, gravitational disruptors slammed into the fortress ship, but nothing reached its hull. Shimmering veil of light, faint and almost invisible, wrapped the construct like a cocoon. The attack simply vanished upon touching it, as though erased from time. Then, for the first time, the fortress spoke. It wasn't sound not in the human sense. It was a vibration in the bones, a deep, resonant frequency that every living creature could feel. Soldiers dropped their weapons, clutching their heads. The alien infantry on the ice fell to their knees. Naomi nearly collapsed before Keller grabbed her arm to steady her. Translation coming through. Naomi gasped, her voice trembling. It says she swallowed hard. It says, "This system is under the protection of the First Builders. Identify yourself, or be removed." The Council dreadnoughts ignored the warning and launched another salvo. That was when the fortress finally moved. What came next was not a battle. It was an execution. Shafts of pure white light erupted from the fortress ship, moving at impossible speed. Each beam struck a Council vessel, and in less than 3 seconds, half the enemy fleet was reduced to glowing wreckage. The rest broke. Formation, retreating in every direction. Even the ground forces began to withdraw, their ships scrambling to escape the atmosphere. Naomi stared in shock. It's not just destroying them, it's disassembling them. Every atom, every molecule taken apart and stored. Keller's jaw tightened. So much for the Council's superiority. But then the fortress turned lowly, deliberately toward Earth. The artifact inside the Antarctic facility rose into the air, spinning faster now, the symbols on its surface shifting into a single pattern, a perfect circle of light. Naomi's console flared with an alert. "It's sending a message. Directly to them," she said. "It's identifying Earth as a former colony." Keller blinked. "Former? I mean, yes?" Naomi whispered. "Whoever built that thing, they made us, or at least they had a hand in our evolution." Or, fortress ship came closer, until its shadow covered the moon. From its underside, a colossal doorway began to open, revealing an interior filled with structured cities, perhaps, or machines glowing with the same silver energy as the artifact. Then something emerged. It was not a ship. It was not even alive, at least not in the way humans understood life. It was a towering figure of metal and stone, icily, 500 meters tall, its form humanoid, but unnervingly perfect and proportioned. Its eyes glowed with a cold white fire, and as it stepped forward into space, it left ripples in the very fabric around it. Naomi's voice was barely audible. A First Builder sentinel. The sentinel raised one massive hand. The artifact in the facility answered with a single pulse of light. The next moment, The sentinel was gone, vanished in an instant, only to reappear directly above Antarctica. The ground shook as its enormous shape descended through the clouds, moving with impossible grace for something so large. The soldiers outside stopped firing. Even the wind seemed to die down as it landed on the ice, its feet sinking deep into the frozen ground. Keller, Naomi, Scott, and the others could only stare as the sentinel lowered its head to peer directly at the facility. Then it spoke, not with words, but with a voice in their minds. "You have been left alone for too long. You were ours. Now you will be ours again." The room went cold. Naomi stepped back. "It's not here to save us. It's here to reclaim us." Outside, the sentinel extended its hand toward the facility. Panels on its forearm opened, revealing intricate machinery that began to glow. Keller's comes lit up with urgent calls. Every defense grid still online had locked onto the sentinel, waiting his order to fire. He didn't give it, because deep down he knew it wouldn't matter. Instead, he looked at Naomi. "Can your artifact talk back?" Hesitated. "Maybe, but if I try, and it sees that as defiance, do it," Keller said. Her fingers flew over the console, trying to inject her own commands into the artifact's signal.
Oh.
The sentinel paused, its glowing machinery dimming slightly. For a moment, Naomi thought she had its attention. Then the fortress ship in orbit spoke again. This time, the translation was instant. "Prepare the reclamation." Above them, in the darkness of space, dozens more sentinels began to emerge from the fortress.
Ow.
Their enormous frames marching through the void. Naomi's voice broke. "Admiral, they're sending more." Keller's expression hardened. "Then we fight. Not for the Council. Not for alliances this time. For Earth." The sky above Earth had never looked like this. It was no longer blue or black. It was a canvas of silver light and shadows as the fortress ship loomed over the planet like a god about to pass judgment. Its surface moved in strange patterns, as if alive, each ripple birthing another sentinel. One after another, the titanic constructs stepped into the void and began their descent. Their colossal frames cutting through the atmosphere in blazing streaks. The Antarctic wind howled as the first sentinel, the one who had spoken to them, advanced across the ice. Each step shook the ground, sending tremors through the facility. Naomi Vance sat at the artifact console, sweat dripping down her face as she typed command after command, trying to override the ancient signal. Admiral Keller stood at her side, comes in one hand, his other gripping the steel railing so hard his knuckles turned white. "Report." Keller barked into the radio. Across the globe, voices came in, a chaotic storm of fear and defiance. "Eastern Defense Network is holding, but, my God, they're walking through buildings like they're paper," another voice shouted. "Western Air Command is engaging. Nothing penetrates their shields." And from a trembling pilot somewhere, "Above the Atlantic, they're not attacking us. They're collecting people. Ships are filling with civilians." Naomi's head shot up, collecting. Keller looked at her grimly, reclaiming. Out. The sentinel stopped less than 100 meters from the facility. From this close, its surface looked like a living cathedral of metal and crystal, thousands of tiny mechanisms shifting across its armor. It lowered one massive hand and pressed it into the ice. A pulse of silver light surged outward, racing across the ground. Everything mechanical it touched shut down instantly, tanks, drones, weapons silent and dead. Then came the sound. Not a roar, not a blast, something stranger. It was like hearing an ancient choir from the bottom of the ocean, each note vibrating. In the bones, Naomi staggered, her vision swimming. The artifact in front of her responded, its glow flaring until it was almost blinding. "It's linking directly," she said weakly. "If it finishes the connection, it'll take control of everything on Earth." Keller's eyes flicked to the blast shields on the wall, and we don't let it finish. From the sky, a streak of fire tore downward, then another and another. The U.S. Strategic Command had made its move. Nuclear-tipped missiles screamed toward the Sentinel, their trails cutting through the stormy air. Impact came with a blinding flash, the shockwave flattening. Snow for miles. The ground shook like a living thing. When the smoke cleared, The sentinel was still standing. Not a scratch. Keller slammed his fist against the console. Damn it! Naomi didn't look up. Her fingers were a blur. I'm trying something. Old, pre-digital. Analog override signals. If their tech is too advanced, maybe something simple can slip through. Above them, more sentinels descended, 10 now, each one landing in different parts of the world. Ports poured in. Moscow, New York, Tokyo, Rio, Johannesburg. Each arrival was followed by silence as communications from those areas went dead, but then something unexpected happened. From low orbit, hidden among the wreckage of council ships, a human fleet emerged. It wasn't large, just a few dozen ships, but they moved fast, weaving between debris with practiced precision. At their head was the Independence, the last surviving Titan-class human warship. Keller's gums crackled. Admiral, this is... Captain Brooks, we've got survivors from Luna Base and Mars Colony with us. We're armed, we're angry, and we're not going to watch Earth fall without a fight. Keller's lips tightened into the faintest smile. Brooks, your timing is perfect. I've got a target for you. He sent coordinates for the Fortress ship's open hangar the place. The Sentinels were emerging from. The Independence didn't. Hesitate. Engines roared to full burn, the fleet angling toward the fortress like a swarm of hornets diving at a giant. The first builders noticed. 2 Sentinels turned mid-descent, rising back toward space. But this time, the humans were ready. The Independence unleashed a payload unlike anything the Council had ever seen. Mass drivers. Firing solid tungsten rods at a fraction of light speed, the first hit took a Sentinel's arm clean off. The second punched through its chest, sending it spinning into the void. The crew cheered, but the victory was short-lived. The fortress reacted, and the space around it began to bend. Ships slowed, their drives struggling, as though moving through invisible water. On the ice, Naomi finally let out a small cry. I have it. I can send one command through, just one, but it has to count. What kind of command? Keller demanded. Her eyes darted to the towering sentinel outside. Self-terminate. Or at least, sleep mode. One, the others will know. Keller stared at her for a long second, then shook his head. No, don't waste it on one. Hit the fortress. Naomi hesitated, her hands hovering over the controls. If I do this wrong, you won't, Keller said. She entered the sequence. The artifact pulsed once, twice, 3 times. Outside, the sentinel froze, its glowing eyes dimming slightly. Above, the fortress seemed to shudder, a deep tremor running through its... Hold out, then the fortress spoke again, in the cold, perfect tone from before, but with something new. You were defiant. This was expected. The tremor stopped. The glow returned. The sentinels began moving again. Naomi's face went pale. It didn't work. They've adapted. Keller didn't respond immediately. Instead, he looked at the approaching figures on the Horizon Council ships, limping and broken, fleeing toward Earth. The enemy of my enemy, he thought. We're out of time, Keller said quietly. Naomi, call every surviving ship, human or council. We're going to hit them all at once. No retreat. Her voice shook. That's suicide. That's survival, he said. Far above, the Independence led the charge. On the ground, the last human armies gathered, around the world in the ruins of cities and the shadows of Titans. People picked up whatever weapons they could find, for the first time in centuries. Earth was united not under a flag, not under a council, but under one truth. This was the last stand, and when the order came, they would fight until the sky itself burned. The first shot that started the final battle was not fired by a human ship. It came from the wreckage of a council dreadnought drifting above the Atlantic. Without warning, the crippled vessel unleashed a beam of violet light at the fortress ship. Striking one of its hangars, the explosion tore through the hull, scattering fragments into the void. It was the signal everyone had been waiting for, from every corner of low orbit. The human fleet, tiny compared to the fortress, moved with desperate speed, firing railguns, plasma bolts, and missile swarms. Beside them, What remained of the Council's navy fought with savage precision. Their hatred for the first builders, stronger than their hatred for each other. The void lit up in pulses of gold, blue, and crimson. On Earth's surface, the fight began in the same instant. The Sentinels spread across the continents, their colossal frames towering over cities, but they were not unchallenged. Tanks hidden. And rubble rolled forward, their cannons blazing. Fighters screamed in low overpasses, unleashing their payloads directly into glowing joints. In the streets, ordinary civilians joined soldiers in the fight, firing rifles. Launching rockets, throwing improvised explosives at legs thicker than skyscrapers. Admiral Keller stood on the command deck of the Antarctic facility, watching real-time feeds from every battlefield. The screens flickered with chaos: victory in one city, disaster in another. Over and over, the Cums screamed for reinforcements that would never arrive in time. "We can't win like this," Naomi said beside him, her hands trembling over the artifact's console. "They're too coordinated. It's the fortress is directing. Every single one of them in real time." Keller's gaze locked on the towering artifact in front of them, then cut the head off the snake. Naomi shook her head. "I tried already. It adapted." "You said you only got one command before," Keller said slowly. "But what if we send 1,000 at once?" She blinked. "It would overload the relay. The artifact might explode." Keller's tone was cold. Then it can take the fortress with it." Above the planet, the Independence fought its way through the debris field toward the open scar left in the fortress's hull. The closer they got, the stranger the space around them became. Gravity twisted, colors bent, time seemed to stretch. But Captain Brooks didn't slow. "This ship dies," he said into Cums. "It's dying where it matters." 2 Sentinels turned to intercept. Independence fired every weapon it had, but the giants kept coming, their shields glowing like suns. Just as they closed in, a formation of Council fighters swept past, slamming torpedoes into the Sentinels' flanks. Both Titans staggered, giving the Independence the opening it needed, back on the ice. Naomi's fingers danced over the controls. The artifact's glow grew blinding, the sound from it now a deafening roar. Warning lights flared all over the room. Temperature spikes, unstable energy feedback. 30 seconds, she shouted. The ground shook violently as the Antarctic Sentinel, half buried in ice from earlier attacks, ripped free and began striding toward the facility. Its eyes burned like twin stars. Keller grabbed the Cum. "All units, hold that thing off, buy her the time." Outside, the snowfield became a wall of fire as every available gun opened up on the advancing Sentinel. Missiles, artillery shells, rail slugs, it took them all and kept coming. Naomi's voice rose over the alarms. 10 seconds. On the Independence, Captain Brooks pushed the ship into the fortress's wound. Navigating through corridors the size of canyons, deep inside they found at the core a vast sphere of shifting light, surrounded by mechanical ribs that pulsed like the heart of a star. Brooks opened a channel to Keller. "We've got eyes on its brain. Give the word." Keller's jaw tightened. "Naomi." She hit the final key. The artifact screamed. The sound tore through the air, rattling every bone in their bodies. Above, the fortress shuddered violently, its glow flickering. Every sentinel on Earth froze mid-motion, their eyes dimming. Now, Keller roared into the Cum. The Independence fired its main cannon directly into the core. The shot tore through layers of alien metal, punching into the heart of the fortress. The explosion that followed was not fire, it was light, pure and blinding, flooding space in every direction. In that instant, every sentinel collapsed. On the streets of cities across Earth, the giants fell like dead mountains, crushing buildings. As they hit the ground, in the sky, the fortress's massive frame cracked apart, its pieces drifting outward like the bones of some fallen god. But victory came with a cost. The Independence, caught in the blast, vanished in the light. Keller knew Brooks. His crew had never planned to come back. Silence followed. The world looked up at a sky full of burning wreckage. The alien threat was gone, but so was much of the planet's defense. Millions were dead. Cities were rubble. And yet, they had won. Naomi slumped against the console, tears streaming down her face. "It's over," she whispered. Keller shook his head slowly. "No, this was just the first time." She looked at him, confused. "They came for Earth once," he said. "They'll tell the story to the rest of the galaxy. When they do, will either be a warning or an invitation." Somewhere beyond the wreckage, in the dark between stars, a faint pulse answered the destroyed fortress. Another signal, another awakening. The war for Earth had ended. The war for the galaxy had just begun.